Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in, and in this video we're going to talk about properties, and we specifically want to talk about three of them. We want to talk about houses and home ownership and how's it like in the US versus all this stuff that you hear from your friends or your relatives, especially if you're living abroad. And then we want to talk about the other type of properties, which is your car. That will also consider as a private property, and it's important in many American lives. That's why I have literally 2 or 3 videos about cars in this channel, where I even talk about like the maintenance, because again, cars are one of the most important factors in American lives, because the distance is huge here and people rely on them. Now the third factor are those properties that people own in the US. However, you do not see them, or average people cannot just walk by your house and see or notice that you have it. And those are properties such as like stocks and Bitcoin and gold or silver and stuff. So the main idea of this video is how does owning these properties work in the US, and for you to kind of receive certain education. Again, we do not have time to go deep on them, on every single one of those 3 factors that I've mentioned. However, to give you an overall ideology so you know what is truth, what is not, especially if you are someone who just moved here, and you will learn this, so in future when you want to buy a house, buy a car, you know it, or acquire some stocks or Bitcoin, as well as if you're planning to move to the US, that will be something to know in the back of your head that will educate you. Or if you are somebody who is watching this from a different country, however, you've heard all these gossips that, oh, America has all these freedoms. So we just talked about the freedom of speech, and if it's really that freedom that everybody advocated for in the previous video. So if you haven't subscribed or watched that video, please go and do so. But we saw or concluded at the end of the video that you are not that free when it comes to the freedom of speech. And this freedom that often is advertised that comes with private property is kind of in the same category. And this video is to argue how and why. Now, this video is not a legal advice, although we kind of need to talk about certain legal aspect of owning a property, or this whole ownership aspect of it, and what are the things that you need to do as a citizen, as somebody who owns them. However, again, this is not a legal advice that should not be contributed from this video at all. Okay, let's go with a home. Okay, a home, a place that you purchase, you want to live in, you want to build your empire, meaning your family, your kids, and all of that. Okay, cool. Now when it comes to homes, you have different types of homes. You have condos, which can be like literally, these little apartments in the 7th floor next to an apartment to your right, to your left, of an apartment above or below you. Okay, now a condo can also be a single family home, but it's in these communities, to say the least. So they say townhouses or something like that. Okay, and then when it comes to this ownership of this, it will be a little bit different. These 2 things that I said that we'll consider as a condo, in compared to owning your own home or having a single family without an HOA, somebody that will oversee you, a due that you have to pay every month. Okay, so, alright, wow, congratulations, I was able to purchase a house, purchase this little condo for myself. Instead of paying rent, now I'm paying it basically to myself, because this money gets stored in my home equity, and then later on I can't use it. Which home ownership is a very interesting topic, especially in the US, because it works so differently than other countries, which I hopefully will put together a video about it too. Okay, so but you buy it, it's a condo, and you think to yourself, oh yes, I have a freedom now, because that's what I've been told with regards to everyone around me, my friends, my family, and everyone else. That means I can come home or like leave my car, or my kids can leave their toys in the front yard, or like, have the music loud at, I don't know, 10 p.m. or something like that. Or like all the extra stuff that I have in the balcony or in the backyard if it's a townhouse, and all of those stuff, because I have freedom. I purchased it. You know, I'm paying for it. Now, that's not the case, okay? And the reason I wanted to be very specific that when it comes to the home ownership, a single family home is going to be in a different subcategory than owning a condo, which can contribute again to an apartment, or these townhouses. You will have an HOA, okay, homeowner association, which kind of oversees all the apartments, all these, townhouses. If you live in a townhouses, all these little single-family homes, and they'll come after you if you do not go with the regulations. For example, if you go next to the pool, and again, all of these are hypothetical because they each have different rules and regulations, but for example, they can come after you if you go, or you have a party, you invited, not party, but like you invited 3 people, you all go next to the pool, you guys have like little beers, and all of a sudden you didn't know that you shouldn't have an alcohol when you're attending the pool, or you cannot have your dog with you just, wandering around when you guys are in the pool, and even though it's close to you, but it's against the regulations. Now, hey, these are, common sense. You should know that. You shouldn't leave your kids' toys in the front yard, even though that townhouse that you own basically has a front yard, has a little grass. You cannot just leave it there, or you cannot just like throw your trash in any manner that you want. It has to be specifically within the regulations, like the lid has to close and all of those stuff. Okay? Hey Rod, this is normal, like everybody does that, everybody knows, it's a common sense. Okay, cool. But if you do not go with the regulations that the HOA has in those little apartments or the townhouses, then you have to pay the fine. Now, if you do not want to pay the fine, you want to fight it, it will get interest on. And then if you want to ignore it, or you want to kind of battle with it because you just don't agree with it, then it can get to a point. This is very important because it comes back later on too. It gets to the point that, especially if it goes to the court or it doesn't, that debt, that money that you have to pay them, and it acquired interest over and over, it gets to the level they can even go after your house, go after that little apartment. They can go after that little townhouse that you own, that you've been paying every month. The mortgage, which consists of the principal and the interest of the money that you borrowed, the insurance on that, and then, the whole taxes. Yes, you paid all of those. But if this part of the equation with the HOA gets into a problem, they can put a lien on your house, so you can't sell it until you pay off that debt. So, do you have that much freedom, or that freedom that comes with the private property in this particular case when we're talking about homes and this specific subcategory, the condos and the single families? Well, you kind of don't, because HOAs are there, and if you do not want to abide by their rules, which sometimes can be very strict, sometimes can be unreasonable, then they can put a lien on your house. They can make you pay a ton more in those fines, or because that's just a regulation. So you don't have that much freedom. Your kids cannot just leave their toys in the front yard just because you have a front yard and it's a single house and nobody else uses that yard. You might not store your old tires in the backyard, even though you can in the single family house, because those are against the regulation and they can go after you. Okay, cool. But you don't have these little problems, these little regulations or laws that you have to worry about if you own or going into the second subcategory, which is owning a single family home. When it comes to the second category, which is your single family home, you have a lot more freedom, to say the least. Okay, and that whole concept of private property and the freedom that goes with it, that starts to make a lot more sense. Now, when it comes to the taxes, it's very important to know that here in the US, for whatever you own, you have to pay taxes. Either it's a one-time thing or it's a recurring thing that you have to pay over and over every month or annually. Now, the houses, no matter if you're in the subcategory A or subcategory B, meaning the condo or a single family home, you have to pay your taxes every month. Or you can pay it all together in a year too. I believe you have that option as well. Now, if you don't pay it, and the reason we're talking about it, because we're talking about the whole freedom, then there are people who are sitting on the sideline, who are looking at the county's records. They're waiting for you to default on them. So you or your wife cannot pay them for a month. And they will step in. And they will pay it for you. And if this thing happens over and over, like say 3 times, now I believe the situation gets worse, and I think they have a say too in the whole private property that you own, and you have to deal with the bank because you haven't made the payments. Let's say in this specific case, you're paying the mortgage, but you cannot afford to pay the taxes. Now, that whole freedom that we just talked about is kind of gone. What does it mean? It means you have to be able to make money in order to pay for that freedom. Now, it's always like that. No, it's not. In majority of the countries that I've lived in, you only pay these taxes not to the level of 1% of your purchase price every year, but you pay your taxes when you sell that property or buy that property, and it's a one-time thing, and it's not 1% of the purchase price. It's not a recurring thing that every year they come after you. Now, there are states that even adjust your property taxes, and there are states that don't. They're just like whatever purchase price was. You understand? So yeah, you have a freedom when it comes to your private property, but you have to pay for them. You have to be able to have a job or have certain assets that keeps paying you in order for you to maintain the ownership of that property, even if it's a condo, even if it's a house, a single family house. So you better figure that out before you retire, to have that money coming in from somewhere, or those people who are sitting on the sidelines that want to catch the quick one will come after your property and happily pay those taxes for a couple months. I believe it's 3 months. I'm not that educated on that aspect. But the main point is, you don't have that much freedom, as much as you've been advertised or told that you have in the US when it comes to the private property. Now, second factor, or the second category, it's the cars. Cars are the second private property that you can own and can have in the US. Now, a lot of people, believe it or not, live in their cars because they cannot afford these heavy taxations that comes with owning a property, and they cannot afford rent. Okay? So they live in their cars. There are certain YouTubers that you can see, or YouTube channels that you can watch, that will kind of confirm this fact. Now, bad or good, when you operate a car, that is operable, like it can actually, the engine turns and it can run, you need to go with regards to certain rules in order to be able to operate it. What do I mean? A, you have to pay the taxes, which is called registration in the US. That's every year, okay? And it depends on the price of the car that you've purchased it. And again, state to state, that's different. And certain states, I believe, like New Jersey, didn't have even like a sales tax on cars. I think they changed it now, but that was the case. But regardless, you don't have that freedom of owning a car unless owning or operating the car, we should say, unless you pay the taxes for it. Now, they just don't give you that sticker. That registration sticker is a little sticker that goes on your plate. I'll have a picture here. Unless you pass the emission test. That's another $60 to $80. But most importantly, everything has to be up to date and with regards to those regulations in order for you to pass it. Okay? Otherwise, unless you can just like pay the registration, but that doesn't mean you're gonna get the sticker because you haven't passed the emission test. Okay, that emission test means like your brakes are on certain levels. That means there are certain levels of CO2 that your car is putting out. Now, if the CO2 if the O2 sensor is bad, or if the calico converter is bad and it's going to cost you $2,000 to replace it, then you have to do it. Because then, just like the HOA rules, think of it as the whole HOA situation. You need to go within those certain regulations and pass that smog check in order to be able to get that sticker, in addition to paying your taxes, which was exactly the same case with owning a condo or a little townhouse. Okay? And then, so how about storing it? How about if I don't use my car that much? It's my private property, right? I have a freedom. I can just store it wherever I want, right? I can just park it on the street. It's my property. I paid the taxes. It passed the emission test. So who cares? Let it just sit there. Wrong. You cannot let your car sit on the side of the street for more than 72 hours or 3 days. If you do, then the police officer can come and put a tow sticker on your car. And depending on how connected they are with the tow company, they can come and take your car. Oh yeah. But it was my private property, right? I could have lived in it. I could have eaten my food in it. I could have drove it anywhere. Oh, and the third factor, passing emission test, paying your taxes for that car, and 3, you need to have an insurance. Okay? Otherwise, if the police stops you, they'll fine you even more. If you don't have a registration, they can tow your car to the tow yard until you get everything fixed. And tow yard is like $300 when it gets towed, and then $100 every night. So much freedom, right? Even when you pay your taxes, even when you pay your insurance, even when you pay or take care of that emission part, you still cannot really own that property. Because if you park it somewhere more than 72 hours, if based on the officer's ideology or thoughts, it's abandoned and not being used because you went and take a trip and it was a week or 2, and there's so much dust on your car that they determine, oh, it was abandoned, then now you have to prove that it wasn't, pay the tow yard fee, your car gets towed, and all of that. So, do you really have a freedom? Even though you pay all of those. Now, let's put a little note here and go to the next subject. If you own a land, if you own a house, a single family house, or those little townhouses that we just talked about, you park your car there on those lands, now it's a different scenario. It's not on the street anymore. So just park it and leave it there for however long you can pay all the taxes on that land or on that house. Because even at that point, if you're just leaving it there because it doesn't work or for whatever reason you just don't want to drive it, then you have the right to put it on non-op or non-operation vehicles. Do not pay taxes on it, do not pay insurance on it, and do not have to pass the emission. Because you are telling the DMV that it's not going to be on the road anytime soon. And if it does, we will notify you and we will start paying all this stuff before getting it on the road. Okay, cool. Now let's go to the third category, the Bitcoin and the stocks. When it comes to the Bitcoin, the stocks, the gold, the silver, they're all assets, correct? But they operate differently. Because within the certain assets, okay, the government is also receiving the information when you're purchasing them or when you're selling them. However, that's not the case with all three of these categories. So with all three of these categories, they're kind of considered as a commodity. Okay, more than the two previous categories that we talked about. That you have monthly taxes, that you have annual or yearly taxes that you have to pay for. Like the cars, or like the houses that we just talked about. Or insurances, or mortgages, or anything else, okay? You don't have that when it comes to gold, the silver, the stocks, and the Bitcoin. Of course, we're talking about owning them. But these become, part of your property, or your owner. You're the owner now of them, okay? So you have a lot more freedom, to say the least, but what can you do with them? You understand? Like, can you live in them? Can you drive them? Can it get you from point A to point B? No. So it kind of makes sense that they're a little bit more lenient and give you more freedom when it comes to those assets. Okay, but also you have to remember that the US government is not just giving you these freedoms for no reason. They want you to purchase these stocks as an American. They want you to put your money in there, because then that money can goes to that specific company, and the company can enjoy it and kind of advance their operation by investing into other things, which will be a bigger company, which will be more profitable, and it's in the US soil, it's under the US name, so it will be better for them. So yeah, you don't have all of that. You probably have taxes when you sell them, or trying to sell them, and that even kind of varies with regards to the accounts that you have. But one can say that you have a lot more freedom when it comes to those. Okay, I hope I kind of summarized everything very well with regards to all these three categories. I did not want it to go so much into every single one of them, especially the third factor, because I think it just deserves its own video when it comes to these assets, the Bitcoin, and with regards to us really understanding the money aspect better. That's why I didn't, but hopefully we will have future videos with regards to that, and hopefully that gave you an overview of how things work here. And please like, share, and subscribe this video, and hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.